welcome to another episode of Story Behind the Collector. And today we're with Sandy, and he was kind enough to invite us over and share his collection of cars. And we're going to start with this beautiful Audi R8 and then this Ford GT. So Sandy, nice meeting you. Thank you so much for having us over.
Yeah, I'm glad you could come. It's nothing more I like than talking about cars.
Well, let's start with this R8 then.
Okay.
This is a 2012 R8, right?
That's correct.
So what's the history behind that, and why did you like this car and buy this car?
Well, I always wanted the, well, let me back up. With my height at 6'3", I don't fit into every car. Mm-hmm. And this is one that a car that I like, but I also fit in very well.
With the top up?
Top up, top down. Certain Ferraris I just don't fit in. My head's over the windshield.
Yeah.
And the R8 there's not many of them. I always like things that are different that a lot of people don't seem to have. And this one really caught my eye because the color of this car is the first thing that's different. It's a very rare color because only 5 of them were made in this color. As a matter of fact, I can show you a little bit later the build sheet on it, where the color doesn't even show the color. It just says special color.
Now, did you special order this, or?
I'm the second owner of this car. The special color, and that's how I learned about this, was only sold to some dealers. And I bought this. The owner of this car was the general manager of Audi of Manhattan.
Okay.
And I ended up buying it. Well, that was very attractive when I'm trying to buy, if I'm buying a secondhand car, is who owned the car. Mm-hmm. And when I found out that it was his car, I knew that it was certainly taken care of, and there was no stories about the car.
Yeah, it looks brand new.
And
so how many miles are on this car?
This car has about 12,000 miles.
Okay, and when you bought it, so did you put a lot of those miles on?
No, I bought it, I think, with about 9,000, maybe 10,000. I think it was about 9,000 miles, and which is another reason that was attracted to this car, because this car rides very, very well, comfortable. And many of these cars that you find, people use them as drivers, and they have a lot of miles on them. And when I found this one with very low miles, that also made it very attractive. And
this car has all-wheel drive too, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so I'm immediately going to see if you have a gated shifter, and you do.
And that's the obvious thing that I only would buy, and they're hard to find.
Yes.
And I don't really buy cars to make money. I buy them because I like them. Mm-hmm. Although the ones with the gate shifters have gone up in value quite a bit more than the automatics.
Yeah. And I notice you have some carbon fiber accents on the car as well.
Yeah, the mirrors, these are accents that I think just add. Yeah. So it doesn't make the car better, but it certainly makes it look better. Yeah. Everything on this is all original. Everything is factory. What you see. Even the gauges, that's an option, white gauges. And at night, they turn gray.
Nice.
The standard is black.
That's pretty cool. And then you have a pop-up display there, too, it looks like? Or does that stay down like that, or does that actually pop up?
It does pop up if you're putting in your navigation on it. But the navigation of 2012 is kind of old school already.
Yeah, exactly.
But this has the V10 engine in it, which I was only looking for the V10 on this car.
And I love this color because it's deep. It's got that pearlescence.
Yeah, the color is called Suzuka Gray Metallic.
Okay.
Which was not a color then. It was a special color that they made for a few of these. But then a couple of years later, I've seen that color from Audi actually become a standard color. Not only on R8s, but on some of their other cars.
Okay. And I like this red piping here. Do you know if that was an option at the time?
That was an option, the red stitching.
Okay.
Yeah. You notice all the details.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous car. And then with the top up, you have a black top.
It's a black top, and what's unique about Audi with their black top, or their top, is the fact that they're triple insulated. So they're acoustically perfect when it's the same as being in a hardtop car, believe it or not, compared to some older cars that have a rag top. And it's completely quiet. And
wow. You don't get to see a lot of the engine with this hood up.
No, on the Spider, on the coupe, that's why some people like the coupe, because you see the whole...
It's glassed in.
Glassed in. However, personal taste, I like the Spider, because you see the back. To me, it looks like a jet, Air Force jet.
Yeah, well, because of these scoops here and in the
Exactly.
center.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful profile standing back
This
here.
car looks better from the back than from the front.
Oh, yeah, you know, you might have a point there, Sandy. I think you're probably right, yeah. And then what's this right here?
This is a spoiler, and it comes up automatically at 63 miles an hour, but I can put it up manually for you.
Okay,
so you
yeah,
can
let's
see
see
what
what
it
that looks like. I really like the exhaust outlets, the way they come out the back and they're integrated into the bumper. Oh, look at it's hydraulic. Sandy, this is a really gorgeous car here, this Ford. And now this is white. You can definitely see the contrast against the Audi we just saw. What's the story behind this car?
Well, this is called Centennial White.
Okay.
2005 Ford GT, and it was there were 4 options on this car. This happens to be a 4-option car. Okay, the 4 options were the center stripe, the aluminum premium wheels, the Macintosh stereo, which you don't really need, and
you got
more fun to listen to the engine. And the other is the brake calipers. These are gray. Standard was black. You could either get gray or red.
So this is a fully loaded car by standards.
You couldn't.
It's got everything.
There's every option you could get. That was the only options on the car. It's not like some of the other cars that are made where you can get different color interior or any other thing. That was it. 4 options.
Now, did you special order this car new?
No, I've owned this car for about 10 years.
Okay.
And the person who owned it before me actually was an older gentleman that lived in Shelter Island. And there's a long story about it, but I ended up actually buying it from. It was never sold, but he sold it to a dealership, back to a dealership at Ford, who sold it to a dealership down in Texas, and I bought it down in a town called Bornay, Texas.
Wow.
And I saw it. We negotiated a price on the phone. I flew down there. I flew a top mechanic that does only GTs that was involved with the engineering of this car down to inspect the car with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent it back up to his place in Michigan, in Detroit, and then we brought it back here. He just went over a couple of things on the car for me and put it back into top shape.
Okay, great. Well, it's beautiful. How many miles are on this car?
This car has 4,000 miles. In terms of the drivability, it's actually smooth.
Okay.
It's a very docile driving car. If you want to drive it and hit it hard to hear the supercharger, it sounds like a jet taking off. But otherwise, if you drive it, you can have regular conversation with the windows up, and it's very the conversation.
How much horsepower is behind this?
It's a 5.4 liter engine V8 with 550 horsepower, which in 2005 was a lot of horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, today you got some of these Hemis 800 horsepower, but actually this car is probably still faster than those cars.
And
or certainly on the curves takes them a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, isn't for all intents and purposes this is a race car, right?
Well, Ford built this car as a tribute car to the original GT40 in 1966 when they raced in Le Mans. This car was built to be a road car, tribute car to be used. You can take it on the track, but it was designed because it has comfort creatures as a road car would have. It has air conditioning. It has a Macintosh stereo.
Okay.
So most race cars aren't going to have a Macintosh stereo, right?
Right.
So, you know, from that standpoint, it's very comfortable. Now, the new GT that they came out with, I believe in 2017, that is really built as a track car. The seats, there's no center console. The seats are right next to each other, so we'd be sitting like this in that car. The seats don't move or recline. Only the pedals move. So that was built as a track car. This is built to be used on the road. You know, you talk about Ferraris. Maintenance on this is is not a big deal. There's a clip right on that side.
I see it.
Put that in. Hydraulics will hold it up.
Oh my gosh, is that clean?
One of the problems was this reservoir here, and I can show you the original one. Actually, I have it inside the garage. And when the oil, there's a drain plug on the bottom, and this is all aluminum. And then when you reach up, because it's high up when you have it on a lift, you have to keep your ratchet straight so that you don't go sideways into the aluminum. So what happens is people reach up and they go on an angle. And that's the first thing the mechanic looked at. He said he knew he would see that.
Mm.
You see a big dent in the aluminum, and eventually that could crack.
Okay.
So we actually replaced it with a brand new one.
How is finding parts for a car like this?
Well, Ford's it's not necessarily hard, but that was the first thing when we wanted to replace this. The car wasn't registered yet, so I wanted to get the part. Ford tracks every part of when you're buying this car. At first, they wouldn't let us buy one because it wasn't registered. And then finally, the mechanic, whatever, he got them to release it to do it. So even when I'm buying, I think I was buying new hydraulics for this a couple of years ago because they wear out. It took a couple extra days because I had to send them my just the Ford dealership. I bought them online from a dealership out in California. I had to send them my registration, a proof of ownership, all this to buy those that they had to because they didn't have them in stock. They had to get them from the Ford warehouse to release it, and that's what they require.
Sandy, I see you also love the Mercedes mark as well. So what do we have here?
Well, this is a 2003 SL55 AMG, and I found this car about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And one thing you were asking me, like, how do you go buy a car and find one? Well, this one was interesting. It was actually on consignment at one of the higher-end exotic car places. And I had the VIN number, and I couldn't remember before I bought it what options it had. But I knew it was bought out of Southampton Mercedes. So I called Southampton Mercedes dealership, and I gave them the VIN number. I was speaking to the person in charge of the auto repair area. And he happened to be the guy, and he said to me, he looked up the VIN, he goes, "You're looking at that car?" He goes, "That car is perfect." He said, we service that car. The guy lives out here in the Hamptons, and then he brings it in, we service it, we bring it back to his house, and we put the cover back on and put the battery tender back on because he lived in Manhattan, so it wasn't used a lot, but it was always taken care of. So somehow just doing your research, you find things.
Yeah.
Other things,
and that came from the heart, right? So he knew this car. He was able to talk to it.
And I still even now I still brought it to a high-end mechanic that does work to have it inspected. And his response was to me, it was the cleanest SL55 he's ever seen.
Now, how many miles are on this car?
About 17,000 miles,
which
is very rare for this type of car. Most people who have these cars, they were drivers.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of miles, and that was very attractive to the car. An interesting article written about this car, that there's no tire that's safe for this car. And you're saying, like, how can that be? Well, in the US, this car has a governor on it for 155 miles an hour. However, in Europe, it doesn't. This car was tested going, I think, about 212 miles an hour stock.
Wow.
It's 492 horsepower. It's a luxury, powerful car. And the reason why they said there was no tire that was safe, this car is very heavy. And there's no tire with the weight of this car, the weight ratio of this car to the speed that can actually go, that they said the safest that I would ever go that fast was 190 miles an hour. So there's no tire that's actually made for the ratio.
So over 190, you risk a blowout then?
I would say so.
But who wants to test it?
But it was just an interesting article how it was written. It's kind of unique that no tire.
And this is a rear-wheel drive car. It's not four-wheel drive.
No,
and you have the AMG option. And this one has the V8 then?
It's a V8, correct. 492 horsepower.
Is it naturally aspirated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So people ask me about the car, which cars do you like driving? They're all different.
Yeah.
They drive differently. This one is luxury and power.
Now, what do you have? Do you have an automatic in this car?
This car is an automatic.
Right, and then you have a 560 SL up here.
This is a 1988 560 SL, and originally I was looking for an 89 because that was the last model year of the Pagoda style car, and they changed the whole style in 1990. However, what attracted me to this car, I found this privately at a house out in the Hamptons.
Okay.
And it had low mileage, but more mileage than some of the other ones that I saw. I think I bought it with about I bought this in 1993, so it was 5 years old, and it had, if I recall, about 25,000 miles on the car, which you could find many of them be 12 to 15,000.
Yeah.
What was
Because a lot of these weren't daily drivers.
Yeah, they were weekend cars,
Yeah.
type thing. But you asked me a question about other things of looking at when you're buying a car privately.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I look at is that I went to the guy's house and I look at how they keep their house.
Yeah.
How things are, everything is like pristine and whatever, and that just gives me a vibe of how they take care of their cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been wrong yet.
Well, I noticed, and I don't know if a lot of our viewers noticed this, but you have this car sitting above this car with the top down. Oh, you do have a shield there.
Yeah, I have drip pans.
But the drip pan's probably dry, right? I would imagine.
They are dry. There's no white line.
Yeah.
No, but rather safe than sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, on it. Now so we're talking about why did I buy the 88 when I was looking for an 89? And the reason why is when I found this car, I was by myself, and my wife wasn't like the internet today where I can just send her a picture. Mm-hmm. But the color is very rare. It's called blue-green metallic. And she wanted a white one. But I saw this color, it was very rare, and I never saw one like it. And I really loved it, so I took a picture of it, had to come back home, had to go to the drugstore, get it developed, show her the picture,
yeah.
And then she liked it, and we went out there the next day, and we saw it, and we ended up buying it. And that's the reason, was because of the color.
So Sandy, what's your history with Corvettes? Do you always like them since being a kid, or how did you get into Corvettes?
I've always liked Corvettes. I mean,
yeah.
Most American kids like them. I will tell you the Corvettes, dollar for dollar, it's the best bang for your buck. Mm-hmm. And what you get, the amount of power, driving experience, versus the cost.
Yeah. And this is a 2013 then?
This is a 2013. It's a Grand Sport, but it's the 60th anniversary edition.
Okay.
Which the interior only came one way on this car, but you can see it has a lot of the badges for the 60th anniversary. Down below, you'll see it on the seats, you'll see it on the steering wheel.
Is it blue, the interior? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell with the light a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get the badging. Does it increase the horsepower as well, the Grand Sport?
It does. Not only the horsepower, but also the design of the car. The car is wider, you can see here.
Okay.
Where it comes out.
Because you have wider tires?
Mm-hmm. The standard Corvette would be flat against here.
Okay. Boy, they do that so subtly, it's not something you immediately notice.
No, but this has a 6-speed manual.
Okay.
Now the new Corvettes that come out now, you can't even get a manual anymore. Even Corvettes, the Chevys have gone to all automatics.
And this is naturally aspirated.
It is.
How much horsepower is this?
This has 420 horsepower.
Okay. And did you buy this new then, or did you buy this used?
I bought this new.
Oh, you did? Okay,
And,
so you special ordered it?
No, it was actually this is a C6. And this was the end of the model year. They weren't even making any more of them.
Okay.
And there were 2 of them on a lot in Corvette down in Atlantic City, who's the biggest Corvette dealer in North America. And they're owned by somebody else now. Mm. But I happened to go to that dealership because George Quebec, who collects cars, not only Corvettes, but many cars, and he actually has the original 1953 car that was made at and showed at the Waldorf Astoria. And he owns that car. It's a very valuable car. And I wanted to see the car, and I saw some of his other cars, and I went there. I never had seen the 60th anniversary edition, and I saw this car, and it was like, wow, I really liked it. And my wife said to me, "You're going to buy that car, aren't you?"
She knows you really well.
So we actually went down. We had stopped in Atlantic City the night before. It was my daughter. It was Parents' Weekend at University of Delaware. We went down a day early to go to Atlantic City and then to go to the Quebec dealership. And once we did that, I saw that, and we left there. And a little while later, I ended up, buying the car. The dilemma was they were coming out with a C7,
Okay.
And that was, the next generation.
Yeah.
Maybe I should wait, but I decided.
And which is probably why the car sat there, right? Because maybe it was mid-year, mid-model
Well,
year.
it was in October. It was the end of the year. But once they were gone, they were gone. So I didn't have buyer's remorse. It was waiting for the C7 because I still like this one today even better.
Oh yeah, it looks really sharp.
And you don't see very many of these. They made a very limited amount of these.
Yeah. So you've owned this since new. Have you put a lot of miles on this car?
No, this car I think has 3,000 miles.
Okay, since 2013.
Mm-hmm. With the different cars I have, I rotate them around, I drive them, each could be...
I mean, there's something to that, right? You really have to drive them a little bit.
Oh,
they need to be driven.
They get driven, but just not a whole lot. I rotate, drive them, and, with different ones, if they drive 300-400 miles a year, and the winter time they don't go out once the salt goes down on the road.
This has been a very enjoyable afternoon. I always love talking about cars with a collector and a car guy. And you've got a really nice collection. It shows that you really did your research with each car, both before and after you bought it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Come anytime. I love speaking about them, showing them, and if you like, we can take a ride on one of them.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Let's do that. Thank you very much.